Kevin. I've never been to
Hey,
New York City, but I'm just so kind of have it lined up to just gonna go by myself for basically the weekend. Flying Friday morning and fly out Sunday evening.
I've never been in New York State myself. We have a couple of genealogy things which if we could ever get it nailed down enough, we were gonna check out there. One's in upstate, one's down near New York City.
Yes, Ken?
There's a lot of
just a
things
heads
there.
up before
Yeah.
we start. I'm still trying to work, so I may turn the camera off if I'm trying to
Okay,
have done. So,
thank you.
but I'm here. You can count me for quorum.
It's not coming through the speakers. It's only through the TV. You have it on work session?
Yep.
What? You can't hear me?
You know, he was
I
talking
can
about
hear you, but it's coming through the TV instead of
Yankee Stadium, and I mean, you
So
know,
it's
living in
quiet.
New York. I can't even imagine, you know,
and tinny.
I grew up here at Spokane. And
Okay.
I thought all grandparents were from overseas. I just took that, I was 20 years old and it came to me that they're not all from overseas.
Jim, it is 6 o'clock.
It is, okay. So I assume we've got what we've got. Have we got a speaker working yet? Kevin, I will have you do acknowledgement. Okay, so it being just after 6, we're gonna go ahead and start the meeting. We'll start with a quick roll call. Ed, if you want to kick it off for us.
As I'm entered home.
Kevin Wyckoff.
Jim Keough
Kimberly Getz?
and Alan.
Alan Tyler.
He said his name. Okay, so we have 5 of us present, so that gives us a quorum for the evening. To start with, I'd like to have Kevin go ahead and read the land acknowledgement for us, please.
Sure. We, the city of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian Tribe and Squaxin Island Tribe. We acknowledge and remember those tribal people not recognized today who were absorbed or relocated into other tribes for survival. We recognize the ancestors and their descendants who are still here. We recognize and respect the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek as the traditional stewards of this land since time immemorial and their role today in taking care of these lands in perpetuity. We recognize and have the responsibility to call attention to the histories of dispossession, forced removal, and abridged treaty rights that allow our nation, state, and city to develop as they have today. We recommend that community members read the Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854.
Thank you, Kevin. And with that, we will now start with an approval of the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at it? And are there any changes or adjustments anybody wants to make in those?
Thank you.
Hearing none, I will take a motion for approval.
A motion to approve.
And I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sounds like we're good. Let's go on then to the approval of the January 15th, 2025 meeting minutes. Everybody had a chance to take a look at those. Are there any changes anybody wants to suggest? Seeing and hearing none, I will welcome a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We've approved those. And then with that, have we had anybody ask to be a part of a public comment? No.
We have no written comment either.
Okay, so let's move on to the items of the evening. Strategic plan update. Sharon, you're on.
Yeah, so you may have noticed that the strategic plan is old. Because we didn't update it last year. We've had a lot of changes, and so when I was reviewing this, I started to go through it and I was starting to try to make a change so that you guys could look it over and approve it, but there's I just feel like there's a significant amount of change that needs to be made, and I think my staff needs to have some more significant input than before. And so I think what we're gonna do at this point is start gathering feedback so that I can draft something totally new.
So, so if, maybe just to facilitate that, I was just thinking if you want to go through goal by goal and then talk about where we're at with the items that are marked there, that would
Sure.
probably be helpful.
Okay. And we did, I didn't include it in the packet, but we did, present at the time, like what we had accomplished, so I'll be able to use that
Sure.
too, for this, but. So for the new plan, I'm going to define the locations versus the institution. So when we say Lacey Museum and Cultural Center, that means the institution and the whole thing. And then,
Do you mean if you can?
oh, dang it. Yes, thank you. Which mouse? What, did people want to see what I'm talking about? Perhaps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, those of us online can already see it,
I'm gonna turn
but
that way
now we
up.
can see your screen as well.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay. So the Lacey Museum and Cultural Center will mean the institution, and then we will refer to the Russell Building as the physical structure and the Belltown Center as the other physical structure. So that's kind of my plan for making that more clear moving forward. And I can't remember what I decided we were gonna call the new building, but there will be something that defines that too, so that
Okay.
we're very clear on which things we're talking about.
Okay, makes a good sense.
So goal 1 is to plan and build the new Lacey Museum and Cultural Center. Nothing too much has changed on this. So other than adding in what we're working on with like the Lacey Community Foundation and stuff like that. This probably won't change a lot, but I'm open to, thoughts.
Right, so it sounds like, we'll probably make an adjustment, for instance, on securing funding and mention the community foundation.
Yeah. Although that might be under sustainable funding, honestly.
Okay, we'll see how that goes.
Put that there to remind myself.
Sure, and then in terms of the operations and interpretive plan for the new facility, I assume we've got most of that in place already, right?
No.
And we have a beginning layer, I know that.
Yeah, so an operations plan, we don't really have that as far as, I mean, there's a framework, I suppose, but like a budget and like
Right.
staffing levels and how we're going to sustain the museum, and some of that depends on if there's an MPD, for example, the Metropolitan Parks District, we could potentially get some of that money. Stuff like that, so we don't have that piece yet. The interpretive plan has been written for the exhibit, for the core exhibit, has been written as part of the design. But we haven't written an interpretive plan for anything else.
Okay.
And it would also include like our plans for programming and things like that. And these things with an asterisk after them are things that are included as a requirement from the Washington State Historical Society, who gave us 2 grants for this project.
Okay.
Okay. So let's move on to goal 2. Goal 2 is to create and deliver high quality experiences at the Lacey Museum. And so near-term objectives, continue to provide mission-driven programs, outreach and events develop a 2-year exhibit schedule for the current museum. I think we're gonna make that a little longer because we're getting closer. That was when we were just starting to build a changing exhibit program, and we're trying to do that. We're getting closer to being able to plan stuff out farther. So I think we're gonna change that because we already have plans. We don't know exactly when they're gonna happen right now because of the new lease space schedule being behind, but we do have like, I think, a 3-year schedule. And I think that will probably make this moot, this upgraded exhibits 1 to 2 times a year. And then midterm objectives is to develop an interpretive plan for the core exhibit review facility. That probably will need to be more like review the interpretive plan and update it, because by the time we move in, things will perhaps have changed. And so these short, mid, and long-term objectives were based on the new museum being within 5 years. But that, you know, keeps getting pushed out, so I don't know. And I was kind of thinking of maybe like totally separating out the new museum stuff from our current stuff. But I didn't know if that would be weird or not. So that's something I've been struggling with. Okay, so here we have in the midterm objectives, develop a 5-year programming and exhibit schedule. That being the goal is to have it really spelled out for a long term. And then develop policies for community exhibits, events, and facility rentals. Community exhibits are exhibits that we work with the public to do, like we borrow things from individuals or businesses and that kind of thing. And I actually think this policy is going to need to be moved up. Because I think in the new space, we're going to get requests. Because like, this has been my experience that when you have a gallery space and like, say, for example, no, I'll just give you a real example from where I was before. We had a Philharmonic Orchestra and it was 100 years old. And when they were having their anniversary, their 100-year anniversary, they wanted to have an exhibit at the museum. But people don't realize how long it takes to plan and implement exhibits. It takes a long time. And so we need to have built in to our schedule those things. And so I want to have a policy for how that will work and how people can propose those things if they're coming from externally.
So that sounds like something we could be working on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I already kind of jotted some notes down about it, actually. So, and then for the new site, events and facilities would be for the new site. So we need community exhibits now and we will need it then too. And then develop staffing needs as identified in the operations and interpretive plans. And then develop a field trip program for North Thurston Public Schools. We can't do that until we have a facility that can accommodate it. Develop an education trunk program for teachers. We might take that out as a very specific item and, you know, leave it more general to partner, you know, with the schools. Any comments on this section so far?
What is an education trunk program?
So an educational trunk program is where you put together a box that has materials in it, like games, books, photographs, maybe some reproduction artifacts, educational type of things, related around a topic that kids of a certain grade are studying in school, and all the content is matched to the state educational standards. And then teachers can check those out, either for free or for a small fee to make sure that they bring them back. And then it becomes a more immersive way for them to teach their subjects.
It's kind of like, at the library, they have like those boxes
Yeah.
of stuff there.
Kind of like that, except it's geared to teachers. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good clarification.
Yeah. And then long-term objectives are develop and implement an annual free community event. Revisit education and exhibit staffing needs that are identified in the operations and interpretive plans. Create a quiet research room with public access to frequently used materials. So we're already going to be creating this, right? So we need to add stuff in here about the research center that we're creating. Develop a history festival event targeted to reach all fourth grade students. So fourth grade is the year in which they learn about local history. And so at my previous place, we had a really cool event that brought in students from 4 states, where you had history demonstrations, like stations all around the site. And the students would go around to the various sites and experience something. Sometimes, you know, we had like working historic ovens and stuff like that. So there was like a place that had cookies. We probably won't be able to have anything that amazing, but stuff like that. Learn about tatting lace, or experience how to make a candle or play a game, stuff like that, to where they learn something that is related to history. And then begin planning for the museum's 50th anniversary in 2030, 2031, and we're probably gonna have to move that up. And it doesn't necessarily mean we have to do anything, but I wanted it to be in there as something we thought about. The museum opened, or was dedicated in 1980, but opened to the public in 81. Okay. Any comments on experiences?
Are you still thinking that the history festival event is a long-term?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, we can't really develop a major event until we have a site.
right.
Yeah. Anybody else? All right. I also want to encourage you, you know, after you go home and take a look at this or think about it, please feel free to send me your comments, because I will use them as incorporation into it. Don't send them to everybody, just to me, please. All right, goal number 3, my favorite, preserve, care for, and manage collections professionally. Near-term objectives are continue to process and catalog new acquisitions as well as the backlog. We actually, before we had to change to a museum move, had made quite a little bit of progress on our backlog. So hopefully we can continue to do that better at the new research center. Continue to make the collections accessible through the online portal. That's our cataloging system called Catalog It. Review and update the museum policy manual. We wrote the policy manual in 2018, and our mission has changed since then, and so we really need to revise it. Especially since we're gonna have a new site too. We need to revise it. And we need to add some policies, like we need a policy for the museum store. That sort of thing. Develop and implement procedures for collection stewardship based on the policies adopted in 2018. The hope being that, you know, if we have instructions for what to do, anyone who comes after me will be able to pick that up. hopefully they'll hire another person with collections experience, but I never have faith that that will happen, so that's why all this stuff is in here. Continue to retain professionally trained collections preservation staff and provide them with ongoing professional development. Lots of stuff continues to be learned and known about how to preserve materials. Move collection stored at the Bowker Street storage unit to the new unit at Rainier View. That's coming off and being changed to move them to the Russell House. Okay, midterm objectives, complete the comprehensive collections inventory. I started an inventory when I got here 10 years ago, 11 years ago almost now. And although a lot of it has been done, there's still quite a bit to go. Prepare the collections to move to the new facility. Develop collection staffing needs as identified in the operations plan. Develop a plan for collections preservation, including a prioritized needs list. What that is like, we identify themes that are important to us, and then we identify gaps in our collection. So things that we would like to collect. In an ideal world, we wouldn't just passively collect what people offer us. We would seek out things that we need to add to our collection. That's not always possible with resources being limited. And then update the disaster recovery plan. The city has a very up-to-date emergency plan, but the museum has one that's very old and it needs to be updated and incorporated into the cities. Because, you know, they're thinking about people, and rightly so, but there's also stuff.
Yeah, because that's probably based more on life safety and property,
But that needs to be in there too, because like, when there's a disaster, once you're done with saving the people and you're trying to recover from the other things, what is most important for us to get, right? What do we get out of the building first? That needs to be identified. Plus, there are disasters that are small, right? What happens if a pipe breaks, or what happens if the floor collapses? These are things from my own personal experience. Okay, and then long-term objectives are to move the collections to the new facility, revisit collection staffing needs, develop a collecting plan. That's where you actually develop a plan about what you want and how you're gonna get it. And then secure funding to rehouse collections to meet a professional standard of care. So that's collections. Any thoughts on that?
Do you anticipate therefore, given the out of dateness of the disaster recovery plan, bringing that to something we'd be reviewing in the next year or so?
I would like to, but I don't have the time.
Okay,
I mean, that's the real problem.
so it's still out a year or two at least.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. It just takes a while. I guess I've sort of put it off knowing that, you know, life's in good hands. Yeah,
okay.
any other thoughts? No? Okay. Goal number 4 is to identify and secure stable long-term funding and revenue sources for the museum. Continue to request funds for priority projects through grant programs as they are identified. Here it is. Partner with the Lacey Community Foundation to secure, manage, and invest privately raised funds for the museum capital campaign. We will probably adjust these to go along with the plan that the consultant is working on.
Who's working on that?
The Lacey Community Foundation.
We're expecting some kind of report on that in the next couple of months.
Yeah, we reviewed a draft, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know the timeline of that?
That's the Lacey Community Foundation.
The plan? Is it going to council in April?
To be.
Okay, yes, soon. And then develop a charter membership and community partner giving program. I'm sure most of you are familiar with museums having membership programs. Something I want to do is start the membership program before the new museum opens so that people can kind of get in on the ground level and secure some sort of lower rate for a period of time if they are in the first wave of membership. And then and a community partner giving program is like where certain organizations, like say service organizations, like the local Rotary clubs, for instance, you know, if they wanted to commit to giving a certain amount of money every year, that's what we want to do, is develop a program like that to where they can be acknowledged for their sustainable gift. And then request additional operating funds through the lodging tax process. We get some operating funds through lodging tax, so it would be a way to get some more money. Continue to develop museum store revenue opportunities. That is under near term. We are working on that right now. The new space is a great opportunity for us to really develop some of our merchandising opportunities, and my staff have been working on some really cool stuff, so things I want to buy. So, I mean, that's the point, right? Is to make stuff that other people want to buy. And museum stores are a little bit different than other retail places because they're really an extension of your educational mission. They're not a place to quote unquote make money, although we do like to bring in some revenue. But they're about providing more opportunities for people to learn and to have a memory of this place they went to learn about local history.
Excuse me, in that area, I see that they're having trouble with the state library now, funding problems. Did you see that? There was
something about the state doing a cutback there.
well, they almost lost it about 10 years ago.
Right.
And I just wonder if we should be following that with all, I mean, they're gonna have to put money in that, and there's gonna be some problems. The people at the Lacey Library would probably know something about that. But am I just worried about nothing, or is
No,
it?
I sent that to you guys just so that, because we can't advocate for anything politically, and if
Yeah.
you were so inclined to, you know, write or call your legislators about it, then I think that's something you could do. Okay. I guess we can take this grant off because that's dumb.
It would seem like.
Implement applicable recommendations from the sponsorship insights plan. They're addressing this in the fundraising plan, so I'm gonna probably change that. And develop an annual giving campaign. I expect that it will be part of the new museum revenue stream that we will ask people for money each year as part of annual giving. Probably in conjunction with like the membership program, when you would send those out, you'd ask for the same time and reach out to your elapsed members and that sort of thing. And then midterm objectives, develop a facility rental plan. That's for the new place. Develop an annual fundraising event. That's also being done through the Lacey Community Foundation. And the cool thing about doing it through the Lacey Foundation is that we'll be able to contract with somebody to put the event on, because we just don't have the staffing power to be able to do a big event yet. And then plan and implement a small gift shop space for the new museum. That's gonna move to now. So I think there will be some shuffling around of stuff based on the way things are now as far as timeline goes. All right. Anything on fundraising? Or revenue, I guess.
No, sounds like one of the ones that's gonna be shuffled around the most.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Goal number 5 is to increase museum awareness, visibility, and value throughout the city and region. So continue to use constant contact or similar email service for sharing museum news. So basically keeping up a newsletter. Continue to maintain the museum website with regular monitoring and updates. Develop the virtually Lacey website with monthly editions. That was a little ambitious on my part. I'm actually trying to develop a sort of like Lacey Wikipedia type of thing. But it takes some time to work through the bureaucracy of getting that approved. So the person I was working with left the city, so I have to wait till the new person comes and gets up to speed. But that's something I've really wanted, so that whenever I research something and learn about it, I can just put it up there. And then it's available for everybody. Develop the historic register and inventory properties map for the website. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. Contribute to city media and publications with heritage stories and images. Continue to regionally promote museum programs and events. Develop a museum communication plan in partnership with the Public Affairs Department. They'll change their name to Communications and Lacey Community Foundation. Pursue and implement museum standalone social media accounts. That's actually been approved already, but we don't have the people power to make that happen at this point. Midterm, develop a marketing strategy for the new museum and develop wayfinding signage for the museum site. And then long-term, develop a system of program facility and exhibit evaluation. So one of the things we haven't done a lot of, we've done some, is, you know, surveys and things like that to evaluate how we're doing and how we're serving the community. It usually does illuminate some good things when we do that. So it's something we'd like to do more of.
Aaron, what's the wayfinding signage that you're referencing?
So like depot this way or exhibit that way.
Oh, I see.
Basically like go here, go there,
Okay, inside the museum itself.
inside or outside.
Okay.
The first item on with the constant contact, is there any kind of plan of like how to grow those email lists?
There isn't, but that would be in the communications plan that's in there. Felicia and I have been talking about wanting, like, some of our history talks, we think would be like our local history talks that are, you know, like my OC Lacey talk. That was super interesting to people here, and we got a lot of people from our area. But then some of our talks have a broader topic, and we think, like the last one was on the Washington State Parks. We think that one could have been better attended if we'd done a better job of marketing it to a different type of audience. So I think we're gonna do some working with our communications department and see where we can do better on some of that stuff. And I'm open to ideas if anyone has them, because I'm not a marketing person. I'm a museum person. Okay. Anything else under marketing and similar? No, okay. Goal number 6 is to build and foster community partnerships to increase capacity and sustainability. So near term is to continue to develop and strengthen community partnerships. And then we have develop an internship and or work study program with St. Martin's University, Evergreen State College, South Puget Sound Community College, or other appropriate traditional or online educational institutions. Midterm is create an educators committee to assist in developing the interpretive plan. my previous institution, we would like have teachers' days where we would invite teachers to come and visit the museum, and we would tell them what we have and how it matches the content that they're teaching. You know, and give them snacks and stuff. So things like that. Develop a History Day partnership with North Thurston Public Schools. History Day is a nationwide day for mostly middle school students, but some high school students do it too. And they have, it's basically a contest, and they have categories like documentaries, research paper, exhibits, presentation, theater type presentation. I don't know, I can't remember what they call it, but basically like a little skit kind of thing. And it's actually happening. It was either this weekend or next weekend, the state contest. I've judged it for many years, and the output that these middle school students do is absolutely staggering. I mean, some of it's not great, but some of it is really incredible. And to get kids interested and excited about history. I mean, like, you're sitting there watching this documentary, and no, it's not the most polished, beautiful thing you've ever seen, but it's stunning the amount of work that they've put into this, and learning about, you know, primary and secondary schools. It's cool. So I would love, and our school district does not participate, and so I would love to work, and you have to have teachers who want to be into it because it's a lot of work. But I would love to have a partnership where we, you know, after the contest, we put up the exhibits and show the documentaries in the museum. And so people locally can come and see what the students have done, and it gives them, you know, an additional lift. And makes the program that much stronger. And then evaluate community partnership opportunities and challenges. I have a feeling my staff is going to have a lot of comments on this section. One of the things we're really missing in this document is inclusivity. And I know that's one of Felicia's passions, so I think she'll be helping me with that. And so that's something I want to weave in here as well. Any comments on community partnerships?
We'll get to that later. No,
Well, that's the end of the document.
I know, no, but the thing I'm thinking about will actually be better addressed when
Oh.
we get to this. So.
No worries. All right, well, like I said, this is probably gonna take us a few months to get through, since we're also trying to move the museum right now, but I think my staff and I at our staff meetings are going to start working on this just a little bit at a time.
Okay,
And then we'll bring back a draft to you guys later.
okay. One quick question, when you talk about the asterisk items need to be met or achieved for the historical grant that you have, how many of these do you think of the asterisk items are achieved, and how many still have pieces to go?
I don't think any of them are done.
Okay,
Some of them have, well, no, I take that back. Our collections policy is done.
uh-huh,
I don't know, I'd have to go back and look because I didn't put the stuff that's done on here.
okay. Well, no, I was just trying to think about, you know, what things still are lingering out there that we need to make sure get done. Essentially what I was thinking for.
Yeah, and some of it we can't do until we're closer to having a facility.
Of course,
Yeah.
but just kind of knowing what
Yeah.
the march is.
Yeah, the whole reason I didn't do an operations plan is because I didn't know how long it would take, and stuff will change.
Right,
And why do all that work
right,
to have it just
right,
change?
yeah. Yeah, things get more detailed as you get closer.
Correct. All right,
So does anybody have any questions for Aaron that we haven't asked already? Alan, Kimberly, anything on your side?
Nope,
I'm
nothing
just
from me.
kind of
Thank you.
wondering the communications or working with the Indians. while they're doing, they're gonna build half the freeway down here into a situation, and we're not even, and we're building a small place over here. It seems to me that it might be worth talking to them. And I suppose you have,
Yeah,
and that's, are they interested at all?
no,
No?
I proposed that idea a long time ago,
Yeah.
to have a joint museum. And
Yeah.
they wanted to do their own, yeah, which is fair.
Yeah, we can get,
I sort of envisioned something where you would walk in and one side would be Lacey
Right.
history and one side would be tribal history.
right,
But
yeah, I think that's a great idea, things like that. I'm not saying I just,
No, I,
it's worried that, cause they're moving. I mean, that thing has changed so much since I came here the first day. I've been here since '70, I suppose, and it's just, I mean, it's just, it's moving as fast as this is. They just built 3 new buildings on Tomwater. I don't know if you knew that.
right, well, and they've got a health.
Yeah,
building,
but I mean, that's just a,
so.
With like, yeah, their whole new big facility there, I mean, that might be something to reach out of. Maybe not necessarily be involved as building a joint thing, but
Right.
maybe as a funding of kind of that community outreach type thing of.
Right,
Yeah,
They're
they're
a
on
big
our
deal.
list of partners. I mean, they gave us some of our money for when we did our salmon safe certification for the building design, they funded part of that.
The Lacey Community Foundation is also engaging them in certain capacities.
Yeah.
Which, again, more to come on that soon.
yeah,
Okay. Am I sharing now?
You are.
so with that, we're gonna move on to to B, which is the historical register properties overview.
Yeah. So at the end of last year, when we were updating the 2025 work plan, you all asked for information on the historic register properties. So I've put together this brief presentation to kind of get you up to speed on that. And so before we dive into the properties themselves, I thought it'd be a good idea to talk about what we're talking about. I have too many mice here. Hide this so you guys can actually see this thing. Okay. So what we mean by the register and what your role in the register is. So first of all, the Lacey Register of Historic Places is codified in the Lacey Municipal Code 1653, and you have access to that online anytime to look at that. And so as stated in the ordinance, anyone can nominate a property for the register, but the property owner has to give consent. It can't be put on the register without the owner's consent because it affects, their ability to do stuff with their property. So this is mostly an honorary designation, although under certain circumstances, there can be tax incentives for rehabilitation on a registered property. In addition, a property owner will be able to place a plaque at their location, which we pay for, which helps raise awareness for historic preservation in the community. The ordinance also includes the criteria for determining eligibility for a property to be placed on the register, and it also defines the role of the historical commission in managing the register. So the commission is the quasi judicial body that oversees Lacey's Register of Historic Places. You're one of the, maybe the only, or one of the few bodies that can actually make decisions. And in addition to the register, we also maintain a historic resources inventory. According to the municipal code, the inventory is a comprehensive inventory of historic and prehistoric and cultural resources within the boundaries of the city of Lacey. So they have to be in the city. Which, as I'm sure you're aware, the city boundaries change frequently, so more things.
You can't really keep up with
Got
it.
it. No, you can't. So all of the resources have to be more than 50 years old, which is also a moving target, with potential historic significance, and that might be eligible for the register. Whereas the register is properties that have been determined to definitely be historically significant and to have historic integrity. So the commission also, the commission considers the merits of the register nomination. So if we get a nomination of a property to the register, we would actually hold a hearing. It would probably be part of our regular meeting, but we would like say we're starting the hearing and public comment would be different and stuff like that. And then we not only review the merits of register nominations for a local register, but the state and national register, if they're within our jurisdiction, they also send those to us for review. Because we know our city better than they do, so they ask us for our opinion. The commission can also initiates the removal of properties from the local register. Oh, whoops. Sorry, I touched something. So even though someone may ask to have their property removed from the register itself doesn't, or the code itself doesn't say that a property owner can do that. It's the commission that initiates that. That's actually a piece of the code that I feel like is really vague and needs to be reworded, but
So they would ask us to initiate the removal?
yeah, basically.
Why are the Pioneer Cemetery on the National Register and yet the Smith House isn't?
I'm gonna wait until we get there. Because I'll get into the specific properties in a minute.
Oh.
All right. Okay, and then in addition to the nominations, you also review changes to any use of the property. So if a property changes from a residence to a business or vice versa, or anything like that. And any design changes. So anything that is other than basically regular maintenance upkeep or painting or emergencies. Basically, anytime somebody asks for a permit from the permitting office, then that comes to us. Now, if I review it as a staff person and they're not doing anything that affects the historic nature of the building, then we may decide not to have it be reviewed because it would be unnecessary. But otherwise it would come to the commission. So the code also defines the reasons for listing a registered property or the criteria for that. I recommend reading the list of 11 criteria in the code yourselves, but they generally boil down to these things here. Historical events, significant architecture, significant designer, builder, or architect, significant people associated with the property, and potential archaeological site, and cemeteries. And whenever we are reviewing a nomination or we're reviewing a design on something, what we're always going to do is go back to the ordinance and follow that as to what it says and what the standards we're going to. And for design reviews, we'll be going back to the nomination form and what it says makes it historically significant, the features that do that. Which is why when we do a nomination, it's really important to have all that stuff there so that we can make good decisions in the future. All right. Now, let's talk about the properties that are on the register. Okay, so this is the Bowker House. The Bowker House is surprisingly located on Bowker Street in Lacey's historic neighborhood. Whoops, dang it. Too many mice. So it was built by 1893 and it's one of the earliest residences in the historic neighborhood. It was added to the register in 1991 and it was beautifully rehabilitated in 2019. It's a vernacular style eye-shaped house, typified by being one room deep and having the entrance on that long end. It was determined to be significant based on two criteria: its association with events that have made a significant contribution to local history, and it embodies distinctive architectural characteristics. This house stayed in the Bowker family until 1986. And Lucinda Bowker was a Lacey postmaster and a charter member of Lacey Women's Club. And her husband, Harold, worked at the the Union Mills shingle mill. So that's the Bowker House.
Do they own that now?
No,
No,
Who owns it?
I can't remember her name off the top of my head. All right, next we have the Gallagher Hookey House. This is the house that's located right next to the Russell House, the former museum building. It was built by 1895 and it was originally located on Pacific Avenue across the street from where the Safeway is now. There's an apartment complex on that site now. And it was added to the register in 1992. It was previously owned by the Lacey Historical Society, but is now under private ownership. It was nominated at the local level under criteria 7. A building moved from its original location, but still having significance for its architectural value. And as you can see, Hazel Hookey had this beautiful garden that I've actually had people still, old timers, come and tell me they remember that amazing garden. All right. The Ruddle Pioneer Cemetery. The Ruddle Pioneer Cemetery was established in 1852 by Lacey pioneers, the Ruddle and the Hicks families. It's located on the northeast corner of Ruddle Road and Mullen Road. It was added to the Lacey Register in 1992 and is also on the state and national registers. How that works is that you submit a nomination to the National Register. When you do that, the state is part of the review process and they can decide at that time to put it on their register. So that's what happened with the Ruddle Pioneer Cemetery. When the Jacob Smith House nomination was put in, it was submitted to the National Register. It was declined for the National Register, but the state decided to put it on the state register. So that's why they're different. All right. Oh, I forgot to say that the Pioneer Cemetery, its determination was based on, there's a specific criteria for cemeteries, which has significance from age, design elements, and association with historic events, and it has all three. Lots of good stories in that cemetery. All right, the Groom Turner House. This was built in 1929 and it is located on Ullery Street in Lacey's historic neighborhood. It's a craftsman style house and it was nominated for the register with 3 criteria: historical events, architecture, and its association with people. Henry and Margaret Turner lived here from 1948 to 1959. They ran the Turner Market that was on the corner of Pacific Avenue and Lacey Street. There's it keeps changing. It's like a pho restaurant or something right now, or a banh mi restaurant.
yeah, there's the restaurant that's right there.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's right there on the corner. Yeah. And the Turner Market was like an establishment in Lacey. It was where people went to go grocery shopping. And Henry Turner helped to establish the Lacey Fire Department, and he also ran for city council, although he didn't make it. If we had been incorporated in 64, he would have been on the first council. All right. And the owners of this house are really great. Whenever we would have our walking tours, we sent out letters to the property owners letting them know we would be by their house. And they would always come out and say hello and talk to
And
everybody.
these houses all have plaques on them, I take it.
I think they all do, but plaques are by property owner
Okay,
determination. They don't have to put one up if they don't want to.
I see.
All right, the Jacob Smith House. So the Jacob Smith House was built in 1859 and is the oldest residence in Lacey. It's in the Greek Revival style, and it's one of the few of this style remaining in the county. It is on the state register and has been treated like it's on the local register since 1998. And as you are all aware, we are in the process of ensuring it is officially added through the nomination process. Its criteria for nomination was due to its architecture. Okay, the Huntemer House is located on Huntemer Lane, which is a little tiny spur off of Lacey Street, so it's just down the way from the Russell House. This vernacular style house was also moved to the historic neighborhood. And it had been on Lacey Boulevard where it had been on a farm. And I'm sure that you know from driving down Lacey Boulevard, all that development, when a lot of that stuff happened, a lot of the historic properties went away. And so this was one that was able to be saved. It was nominated at the local level. A building removed from its original location, but remaining significant. So L.C. Huntemer, who was the father, he was a Thurston County Sheriff. And the water service that they started to help their neighbors get water piped to them eventually was sold to the city of Lacey and became our first water service. And their son, one of their sons, Thomas Huntemer, became a city council member, and he was later mayor of Lacey and still remains, I think, the longest serving council member in Lacey, and Huntemer Park was named after him. And this was added to the register in 1999. All right, the Lacey Women's Club. This is located just east of the Lacey Museum on Lacey Street, right in front of it in the historic neighborhood. It was built in 1937 and has a vernacular design with some craftsman details. It significantly has its original wood sash windows and wood shingle cladding, which is pretty cool. Most places don't have that anymore. The Lacey Women's Club has been an active service organization for over 80 years, and the property was added to the register in 2000. All right, the Russell House. This was built in 1928. Oh, why does it say 26? Anyway, it was 1928. There are old documents that say it was 26, but I found a newspaper article saying when it was built, so it was 1928. The Russells were in Lacey by 1910, and they operated a cigar, confectionery, and billiard store down the street. They later opened a service station as well. It was originally right next to what is now Pope John Paul II High School. And Lacey Fire Department used the house as their headquarters and then later leased it to the city of Lacey for Lacey City Hall. You can see here a picture of the first 3 employees of the city of Lacey, police officers, in front of City Hall in its very first year. The property was added to the register in 2001 based on 4 criteria: significant events, significant architecture, significant people, and broader city history.
Why don't you want to be on the Taylor House? Okay. I feel like my changes to this did not show up. Hold on. No. Yeah, that's right, okay. I cannot see. Glasses on, glasses off. Okay. The Taylor House, dang it, wrong mouse. Oh my God, okay. The Taylor House is located on the waterfront, on Hicks Lake, next to Wanchers Park. And it's in the Tudor style. This house was built by Eugene and Marvell Taylor, who purchased the property in 1922, which was the same year that they purchased Anita Beach, which is one of the resorts that was on Hicks Lake. Eugene was in the oyster business for many years, and this was kind of their retirement plan. So it was a very popular resort. And it's our only property on the register associated with the resort area. The home and house, this is on, again, surprisingly, Home Drive, which is near the Lacey Post Office. It's kind of tucked back in with lots more trees around it, so it's kind of hard to see, which is why you've got a historic photo on here. It was built in 1940 by Al Homan, who was a contractor. He was also Lacey's first mayor. He built many local buildings in Olympia and in Lacey. And he and his wife Anna were very influential in Lacey's early days as an incorporated city. And early city council meetings were held in their detached recreation room. We have some pictures of meetings there. It was nominated in 2011 based on 4 criteria: significant events, significant architecture, significant people, and broader city history. Okay, the Jensen House. The Jensen House is located in the historic neighborhood on the corner of Ullery and 7th Avenue. It was built in 1928 by Nels and Sarah Jensen. It is typical of the craftsman style. Jensen drove a beer wagon in Olympia and later worked at the DuPont Powder Company. So he was, you know, an early commuter. It was added to the register in 2011 based on 2 criteria: architecture and local history. All right, so the Lacey Register of Historic Places by ordinance only covers properties within Lacey's city limits, but there are a few properties in Lacey's UGA that are on other registers, and I thought I'd just quickly share those with you as well. So this is the Faulkner Colza House, and it's located on Holmes Island in Long Lake. It was built in 1938 and it's on the Thurston County Historic Register. And it's in the UGA. And then just down the street a little bit from there is the Holmes Island Water Tower, which is really cool. And it was built about 1938 or 9. And it's also on the county register. Okay. And then we have the Union Mills Supervisor House. That's located on Union Mills Road. It was built in 1910 and it housed, it was built for obviously the supervisors at the mill, right? They had like a company town where like some people would stay in dormitories, but the foreman got these fancy houses. There is a second supervisor house next door to this one that still stands as well, but it's not on the register. And so this is also on the county register. And then lastly, the Long Lake Recreation Hall. This is also known as Heritage Hall and is on the Thurston County Fairgrounds. It was built in 1933 and is on the Thurston County Register, the State Heritage Register, and the National Register of Historic Places. So
whenever, if that property becomes part of Lacey, we could also then add it to our register. So that is that presentation. So, next time, probably not at our next meeting, but the next time we discuss this, I'll be sharing with you the properties that are on the historic inventory. So properties that have the potential to be on the register. That is, as you can imagine, a much longer list. And then there's also a third list, which is properties that haven't been evaluated, but that could be significant. So properties on the inventory have been evaluated, may not be a totally in-depth evaluation, but they've been evaluated on some level.
Aaron, a couple questions. So I lived in a house that was on the historic register for Olympia before I moved to Lacey. And we actually got it put on the register at the time. The several questions along the line here, because I know this has impact in terms of both staffing and costs and stuff like that on several players' sides. Could you talk a little bit about that? I mean, I know that you and I have talked before that there's a degree of cost in evaluating properties. What are the strictures? I know what they were when we did it, but I don't know what the strictures are now.
The strictures on what?
For the property owner and getting put on a register.
So the property owner, just has to say yes to being on there. If they want to initiate it, they need to do, you know, some of the work to get it on there.
Right. But what I remember, for instance, is like when we decided to change the front steps on our property, we ended up having at least the Olympia Historic Commission come by and take a look at what we were planning.
Yeah, that's not the nomination, that's the design review process after. So yeah, it's similar here, that like I said earlier in my presentation, anytime a permit is issued or going to be issued, it cannot be issued on a registered property until we've reviewed it. And I try as much as I can to get people to come to me first before putting in an official proposal, because while the nomination takes a lot of work, the design review really has to be a collaboration, where they, you know, have what they want to do, and we talk about helping them with maintaining the historic integrity, which may not always be exactly what they had in mind, but we can help them find solutions to that. So basically, anytime that they want to do anything, change the use or do anything other than like routine maintenance or painting or emergency repair, then we have to review that. And a result of that is that we issue a certificate of appropriateness, or we do not issue a certificate of appropriateness. And that allows the permit to be issued. We can also issue a certificate of appropriateness with conditions.
So, and what does it cost the city, or either in staffing or contract costs, for doing an evaluation of a property that's nominated?
So I don't know, we haven't done that, but because that's not an area of my expertise, we do have to contract that out to get an evaluation. The most recent, the property evaluation that we're doing right now, that's different. It's got different requirements than would be for that. For 3 properties, it's costing us between $7,000 and $10,000.
Each or
No, total.
total?
That's pretty cheap.
And then in 2011, a survey was done of properties that had recently become 50 years old. And from that, I think some items were put on the inventory, but a lot of them were not historically significant. So probably, either, part of the problem is that we have a lot of historic property inventory forms that are really out of date. Like, they haven't been surveyed since the eighties, and as you can imagine, a whole lot has changed since then. I mean, I've changed a lot since then. And so it may be that the next step would be some sort of a survey. And I'm not sure exactly what that would look like at this point, but yeah. So that's why I'm kind of, so the historic inventory has been kind of this nebulous thing for me ever since I started, because we didn't have, there was supposed to be an official list, but there wasn't an official list. And so I've been trying to like put that together. I just started working on it again today, taking pieces of what I had learned. And so I'm hoping to have a list for you guys, and I'll have it in a map.
Okay.
I'll have our GIS guy put it in our map and be able to show you.
Is there still any kind of property tax break for people who are fixing up a
Yes,
property
that's,
that's been nominated or are approved?
Yep, I mentioned that in my presentation.
Okay.
It's hard to get. It's really, there's a threshold limit of what you have to,
Right.
you know, a
Right.
monetary cost, and you have to document everything. So like, the person who rehabilitated the Bowker house wanted to do that, but you have to have planned that already when you are going to do it. You can't just turn stuff in afterwards.
Right.
So we've only had one property owner do it because it is a difficult process, but yes, we do offer
I
it.
know we did that.
What did
I
you
was
work on?
wondering if it was still there.
What did you work on? Where,
It's a house down on the east side hill in Olympia.
on the east side? What's that mean?
Well, the east side hill, right below the water tower over in Olympia, if you come the east side hill, where we were just up off of Fourth.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a house from a guy who'd been a real estate developer, and he had a layered career, but the ending of that career was that he'd been a real estate developer and he developed the house in
Yeah.
1914. So
That's right on the other side of the park, by the water tower there.
yeah, we were down the hill.
Yeah, it's,
You can look out our back
I had
porch.
there was a couple of friends of mine that had different houses up there and have lived there and stuff. And
We had
have you been over there lately, by the way?
oh yeah, we go by there.
They're really fixing that up, really pretty nice around there. They're building houses in their places. It's kind of unusual. I mean, that was a place where you wouldn't let your kids out of the car, you know?
Right.
I dropped one of my kids out there to play baseball, and I thought my wife we drove home, left him there. That's awful.
So, yeah, I was just curious about, where some of those pieces are still in place.
Yep, they definitely are.
Okay. Other questions people may have?
Okay, the last thing I wanted to share with you is that, since I was doing the presentation anyway, I decided it was time to do our website page. So you'll find this in our, menu under historic preservation, historic register properties. And there's a list of, properties with more history, as well as their nomination forms and staff reports and things like that, their National Register nominations, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to ask Gary, our GIS guy, to add a map to this page. There you go.
Great.
That's what I've been doing. It's good that you guys asked me to do this because it's kind of making me do some work that has been needed to be done for a while. And it's hard to make it a priority when there's so much going on.
Yes, I totally get that.
Getting old is a birthday.
I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Anything else on that?
I don't hear anything, so I think we're ready to move along.
Okay. Next up is recent acquisitions. I'm trying to avoid taking them right now because things are kind of in flux, but we were offered this and I could not turn it down. So we received this clock and lamp from Judy and Doug Carmen, and I had a lovely conversation with them, and they brought in their original properties, which I got to take pictures of and stuff, but both of these items were purchased by Fred Morris from the Union Mills Hotel auction after it closed in 1931. The Union Mill was located on the northern end of Long Lake, and it was in operation from 1895 to 1931. And so when it shut down, I had no idea, but I mean, it makes sense. They auctioned off all the stuff that was in the hotel. And this family, he purchased property on South Long Lake and he built a summer cabin there, and his family went there every summer, and eventually they moved into it as a permanent residence. And they bought other property along the house and sold it to their friends and kind of had this little like Tacoma contingent who for a while had summer houses, but eventually became permanent residences. And the property was inherited by his daughter Marie and her husband. And they tore down the original cabin and built a house there. And Judy, the one who donated these, she inherited that property, and her and her husband lived in that house until they just recently sold it. Their kids, of course, did not want to be in it, and so it's not in the family anymore, sadly. But they brought us these items, and it's so cool because the only thing that we have from Union Mills besides pictures is a piece of wood that is stamped with Union Mills on it. So these are pretty cool. These are like the only thing that we have that kind of demonstrates that that company town thing where there were residences there, right? So I think it's a really great addition to the collection, and we're gonna put these on display in the new space in our bits and bobs exhibit.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
So we have to approve that.
Yes, please.
So any discussion of that, or do we just want to move straight to a motion?
And if you don't approve it, we can't be friends anymore.
I move to approve the accession for this month.
Oh, what, Kim?
I said I move to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Got a second from Kevin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody,
Ellen said aye too. I could hear him.
Thank you.
and hearing no negatives or nays, that is approved. And with that, we move to reports.
My dad used to be a clockmaker, and we've got a few clocks, and that's a nice clock.
That's pretty cool.
So first up, I think is Lacey Historical Society.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Thank you for having me here tonight. And Aaron, it's always nice to see you.
Hi.
My name is Paul Webb. I'm a trustee on the commission.
Hey, Paul, would you mind coming over or here so we
Oh,
can
sure.
see you on the
Absolutely.
screen?
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah.
Let's see, I think you're being brought up to date by somebody from the society on hopefully a monthly basis or near it. So I'll just kind of try to give you where we're at with some of our projects right now. And we've got a couple of what we consider to be one of our major ones. Of course, one we've been working on for a few months is working on a statue for the first doctor to come to Lacey, and that's Dr. William Ehlers. I don't know if any of you had Doc as a doctor, but most of us on the society did have, or many of us did have, at least on the society. And so we're anxious to get this project moving. We've talked to, we developed kind of an honorary advisory committee for it, which includes Jeff and Chris Bloom from and John Donaldson from the Capital Development Company, which later on in Doc's career, He was a member of capital development, and important member of it. And Dave Bjornson, a former administrator at St. Peter's Hospital, has agreed to be on it. We're also working with the tribe to see if they have anybody that might want to sit on that a voluntary or honorary advisory committee. Doc's worked with, we became aware, of course, that he worked with the tribe. When he came to Lacey, then members of the tribe started using him like everybody else did. I had a talk with Sheila McLeod out there about him, and she remembers him fondly, and they all had him as a doctor. But one of the notable things that she brought up about Doc and the tribe was that he used the Indian insurance plan. And apparently none of the doctors before him were real enchanted with doing that. For she thought a couple of reasons. One was it was a federal program, and so payments took forever to get back to the doctors, so they didn't like to do it. But maybe Sheila suggested also that maybe there was a little bit of a heritage issue with some of the doctors as well back in those days. The doc accepted it uniformly, and for everybody that he served out there, and she thought that was quite a thing for him to do. For those of us that knew him, it was not a surprise. His kindness in that fashion extended to everyone in the community. And so that's just one of the minor reasons why we're trying to get that statue erected. Recently, we've contracted with, or will be contracting, I should say, with Lacey Makerspace. They have a business over there that does 3D printing, and they will make a small statuette of Dr. Ehlers in the fashion of what we were planning for a larger statue. And so it's a kind of a resin substance that they use that can actually put bronze coloring on it and make it look like the statue would actually look. So we're moving ahead in that regard. We have had a very initial discussion. I didn't have it with him, but John Jajix did with Mayor Ryder about the possibility of having the statue at the Lacey Community Center. He seemed hopeful that we could actually do that. So we're moving ahead in that area as well. We're also working on the Memorial Garden. There's some talk, City Gates Ministry is looking apparently to buy the property that the Lacey Women's Club is on. And so there's some early.
Just to clarify, it's not buy, it's give.
That's right. Yes, it was a donation to City Gates, as I understand it. And so to kind of redo or rebuild parts of the Memorial Garden, because I'm not fully aware of what some of the problems are, but I have heard that some of the plants have died and they have all not been, able to be maintained to the extent that they wanted. So we're looking at moving it over into there. Let's see. One of the other things that happened this last month was Jack Holman. Jack was Al's son. Jack became quite a resource for us in all things historical. I wrote a book about the Lacey Fire Department here, early history of the Lacey Fire Department. And Jack ended up being one of my primary resources because his dad gave Lacey its first fire station to use, also built the second one before they moved into the one that Aaron was showing the pictures of there. And so he was a gigantic benefactor for the fire department and for all things Lacey. And so Jack was one of my great resources. He passed about a month ago, and his service was here last Thursday, I think, actually. But in our discussions with Jack, we also became aware that he had some real reservations about the care of Alana Holman Park. And his mother and dad gave the park to the city, and he felt that it wasn't being maintained properly. And John Jajix took the lead on this and did a fantastic job with it. But we met with Jack a few times, and actually most of Jack's complaints, we ended up getting them satisfied just by explaining to him the agreement and how it would work, and what the city had done and was doing in maintenance of the park. And we actually found it to be quite stellar. However, there were a couple of issues that Jack had, and since he passed, we already had this meeting set up, but then he passed away, and he didn't get to be a part of it, but John and I met with Rick Walk and Jenny Wilson, I believe her name was, from the city the other day. And one of the things that Jack really had a problem with was a flagpole. There had been a flagpole put in that park when it was first dedicated and was there for many, many years. And somehow it disappeared. And nobody let him know that it was gone. He was very upset. And so John and I had been, and Jack, had been working with the city. And while they didn't agree to a flagpole, because flagpoles are hard to maintain for several reasons, which I won't go into. But what they did suggest was, John and I thought it was a great idea, and we were both convinced that Jack would have thought it was a great idea, is to put sometime in the not distant future, maybe a couple of years, but they agreed to start working on it, is a bronze plaque, basically a rather large one from some of the pictures that I saw that Jenny had suggested, which would include a large American flag in the top of it, and then along with a story about Alana Holman Park, and then a story about Jack's direct involvement in the baseball field. Jack started building the baseball field when he was a kid. His dad took it over and built it with construction equipment and all the rest of it, and built what roughly is there today. And so he asked that we commemorate the ball field to him. And so the city has agreed that they would write the story in such a way that recognizes Al and Anna Holman for the park and then Jack for the ball field. So we were quite happy with that outcome. The other thing, let's see, our membership. We are on a membership drive. And of course, organizations like ours are always on membership drives. But right now we have 98 members, and we have a goal of getting over 100 by the end of this year. And I think we're going to achieve that goal without much problem. Gosh, that's all I have written down here. I think I'll open to see if you have any questions.
But say that organization you're.
Lacey Historical Society.
Okay.
Yeah. And by the way, personal editorial, every time I get the opportunity, I like to tell people how great Erin was. When I wrote that book, I called her one day and said, do you have any information? I grew up in the Lacey Fire Department, so I feel like I knew, a lot of it already. My dad was a charter member and I went to fires with him. I always joked that he took me places when I was 4 or 5 years old that today would get him thrown in jail and me taken away by CPS. but I thought I knew it all already until I got the download of information that Erin had. She's a tremendous asset to the city, and you're a group that I hadn't talked to about it yet, so now you know my feelings. Any questions?
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay. So next up, Kimberly, anything on this policy steps committee?
Nope, we're still on hiatus. Thanks for
Okay.
asking.
So while we've got you on, why don't we start our reports from commissioners? Anything you want to report?
Nope, but thanks.
Okay.
All right.
Anything from you, Alan?
I just wanted to report that I really enjoyed the historic topic.
Kim, can you tell us what he says?
He really enjoyed, say again, Alan,
The history talk this month on
the history talk. He really enjoyed the history talk.
Yay. I'm hoping he means mine.
So I guess I'll rotate. Ed?
I was just curious, if I want to join one of these, organizations, how do I run them down? I mean, like him, I got that written down. I'm gonna probably join it and
Sure.
but we don't get to join organizations unless wife's approve it at my house. So anyway, I was just curious about that. If there's a place, if you guys keep is there some place where they file any organization that starts up here or what?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, like if I want to join that thing, I just ask him What's the name of the organization?
Yeah, Lacey Historical Society, they have a website, yeah,
Okay, that's what I meant. And you're just doing a website then, that's what the serious is.
that's what they're doing.
Yeah, that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
Each organization is different.
Right.
I'm just too old for that, see,
I mean, you can also write a check and fill out their little form.
oh, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do, but that's.
You have any, Paul?
What's that?
Do you have any with you?
I've got a form right here.
Well, I'll take.
And if you get the new, if you get, the-
I have to have it
It's in the
approved.
newsletter too. When you get the.
that's true. So Ed, while he's doing that, do you have anything else you'd like to report?
No, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Kevin?
I just, thought it'd be interesting. We've talked about Luther J. Wyckoff before and shares the last name with me. And, since the last time we met, I, got together with my cousin and, did some research. So he's my sixth cousin.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that might find a little tidbit for that, but that's all I have to report.
That's pretty cool.
That's the website.
The only thing I have to report on is that,
You wanna fill that out?
about a week ago, we had the dedication of the kiosk at RAC that, was being developed, and that turned out really well. It featured the Evergreen Ballroom. It had, a couple of the panels talked about the tribal influence and history in the area. We had one on the Nisqually Delta. We had one on the city of Lacey. So all of these turned out very nicely. There was a good crowd. There was about 50 people. And we even had a dedication song sung by 3 members of the tribe. So it worked out very nicely. It was a nice thing. I definitely recommend getting out there to see it. If you go to the rack, you're going past the ball fields and you get out to the picnic area near the bathroom that's toward the back end of that. The kiosk is right there and it's a very nicely done one. I thought it looked really good, so.
Yeah, Dana did a great job on the design. It looks
Yeah.
good.
So that's my primary item to report.
Excellent.
Aaron?
It's my turn. All right, since we last met, we've had 2 history talks. In February, I gave my presentation on OC Lacey to a pretty good turnout, which was especially gratifying since it was a cold, wintry day. And I was worried we would have no one because we're kind of wimpy here in Washington. And lots of our regulars did stay at home, but we still had 30 people in person, which I thought was pretty darn good for a winter day.
Our Midwest relatives were weather wimps.
The roads actually didn't turn out that bad, but people, you just don't know. And then we had 56 online, which was a lot. So, plus we've already had almost 100 views on YouTube, so.
That's great.
It's pretty good. The March History Talk was really interesting on Black workers in the Civilian Conservation Corps in the state parks. That program wasn't recorded, so if you missed it, you missed it. But if you are interested in the topic, there's a Thurston County Historical Journal article on it, which was what his presentation was based on. So the museum move, we have made some significant progress since we last reported out, and I wanted to show you a couple pictures. Because it's one thing to like talk about walls and the space, and it's another to see them. So here is the inside of the space with our new walls to divide things up and make different partitions. That was probably our biggest excitement of the month. We also have the office space, just got finished, painted, patched, and dust built. So we're just waiting for IT, and then Felicia and Olivia can move over to the museum. And so they're gonna start moving out of their cubicle next week. And so as soon as stuff gets moved out of the Russell house, then I can move over there and we can start getting the research room ready. So feels like the last thing that we are going to need is the platforms, because things can't sit directly on the floor. The contract just got routed for that, and so the building on those will start pretty soon. All right. And that's that. And then the historic preservation consultant that we hired to do the research on 3 properties, the McKinney House, the Long Lake House, and the Jacob Smith House, has completed their work, and they have submitted a draft of their report, and staff have already reviewed it, and I also reached out to former Commissioner Sarah 30acre, who reviewed the report and gave me comments because she has a historic preservation background, which I don't have, and so I really appreciated her comments. We did our cultural resources report for the depot, and so that was very helpful. So I'm going to be working on consolidating those comments for them and also checking it against our scope of work to make sure everything is included. So we're getting close to the end of that project. It's really good. All right, and then last of my report is in your packet, there was a press release for the Lacey Historian of the Year. So we're accepting nominations for the award through the end of March. Please do make sure that you can attend the April meeting so that we have a quorum for this important vote, because that would be really sad if we had to put that off to not be in Lacey History Month. So the city council meeting for that presentation, as well as our annual report to the council, is scheduled for May 20th. So please put that on your calendar too, because we'd love to have a good showing for that. And that is all I have for my report.
Any questions for Erin on her report? Hearing none, do we have a report from Jen via you?
We do. Oh, also, I forgot to mention our 2 upcoming history talks. We have a history of whiskey in Washington State on April 10th and the origins of Asian America on May 8th. This guy is coming across the country, and he was going to accept our measly honorarium and cover all of his expenses himself. We were able to pay for quite a bit of it out of our budget, but it was really generous. So we'd like to get a good showing for that one. All right, so I'll put my Jen's hat on. She is planning to be here next month, so hopefully you will see her again soon. She's had a lot on her plate. So the Parks, Culture, and Recreation Annual Retreat was held last month. Staff was able to reflect on 2024 and celebrate accomplishments, express appreciations to each other, and set goals for 2025, as well as get some team training and development. Okay. Of note, the city broke ground on the new Greg Cuyo Park 2 weeks ago. The entrance is going to be off of Carpenter Road, and the park will potentially be open by fall of this year if everything stays on schedule. Knock on wood. The city of Lacey, so Jen heard from you guys that you wanted to know more about legislative priorities, so this is what she wrote about that. The City of Lacey 2025 state and federal legislative priorities were approved by City Council in December and January, and they're located on the website in the government relations section. Council wanted a more streamlined legislative agenda. It used to be like really long and windy. And so as a part of that, one of the pieces that they removed from it is future projects, things they aren't actively pursuing at the moment. And so that's why the museum project isn't on there. It is still on the capital facilities plan and our department's comprehensive plan. City Manager Rick Walk and Jen both attended the March 8th RAC kiosk dedication. I was unable to attend because I had a prior commitment with my daughter's color guard competition. But Jen's note says, it was a beautiful, heartfelt ceremony and the kiosk is amazing. We want to thank the Lacey Historical Commission and the museum curator for all of their work to help this project come to fruition. Special thank you to Chair Keough for attending and speaking at the ceremony. And lastly, the Lacey Youth Council representative to the Historical Commission position is going to remain vacant for the remainder of this term since the school year is almost coming to an end. So we'll get a new one in September probably.
Okay.
That's it. That's all I got.
Okay, any questions? If not, I guess I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
I'm
And I don't, any nays? Hearing no nays, we're adjourned. Hope to see you all in April because we do have some important work to do. So.
I'm gonna